Make a list of all the things that you want. And when you make this list, don't be shy. Don't sit there and think like a lot of salespeople do. Oh, I want that, but it's maybe aiming a little bit too high. Is that good? Take the blinkers off, get a piece of paper and write everything down that you want to achieve out of sales. All the things that you'd like to achieve. And then put them into the 3 lists. Long term, short term, and immediate. Anybody who says, I don't need anything, and it often happens. Anybody who says that, oh, I don't actually need anything, will end up with exactly that. Nothing. Often when I do goal setting, I ask the salespeople that I'm training, what is it that you want to achieve? And then they sit like this, usually. And they say, but actually, I can't think of anything. If that's the case, you need to go out and do a shopping trip. It's because you haven't been out and looked. And this is a very important part of goal setting. Go out and have a look. I did this when I was a sales director of a home improvement company a long time ago. I had 35 salespeople working for me at the time. Those salespeople earned huge amounts of money. And they were not experienced salespeople when they joined. I never employed salespeople at that point. I employed people with a great attitude. So I was employing barmen. I was employing waiters, I was employing guys that were failing at IT, I was employing people that were managers of a warehouse department, but had an absolutely great attitude. They had a desire, they wanted to achieve things. And it's quite a long time ago, and in those days, the one thing that everybody wanted in our company, every salesperson's mark was to drive a Merc. And believe it or not, it's really realistic. You could buy a really good second-hand Merc in those days for about 35,000 rand. But that was just, BMW hadn't got to the point yet. Merc was still the car to drive. If you drive a Mercedes-Benz, you were it. You made it. And these guys were earning the kind of income where they could do that. So everybody wanted to drive a Merc. Some of the guys did have Mercs. And I had one particular salesperson who was working for me at the time. His name was Ian Nicholson. He was a Scotsman. And his previous experience was, he was a diver on the North Sea oil rigs. Now I'm talking a long time ago, this is like 25 years ago. He had tattoos on his arms, he wore an earring. He was a rough guy. Ian was a rough guy, but he was absolutely passionate about selling. He was absolutely dedicated about going out and seeing customers and earning money. And his one big thing in life was he wanted to own a Merc. He was like everybody else in life. That's what I want to own, but I'm probably never going to have one. Suddenly he was in an environment where people were actually achieving these things, so it became a little bit more realistic. After 6 months, he was starting to earn a pretty regular income. And I decided that I needed to help him to achieve this goal that he had in mind. Every time that he and I went out in my car, we used to go to see customers together often. He'd sit in that car and he'd look at the badge on the bonnet, and that look on his face was amazing. He'd sit there in my passenger seat and say, wow. And he'd look around and say, this is what I want. But he said it like every second day, this is what I want. When he saw the other guys cars, that's what I want. That's what I want. He kept on and on and on about it. So we had to take it a step further now. And in those days, there was a company called Santon Auto. They were at the bottom end of Louis Vuitton Avenue. They specialized in second-hand Mercs and nothing else. Good quality second-hand Mercs. I reckon Ian could have spent about 35,000 rand. He was comfortably earning a good income. They worked on commission only. So we needed to wait a certain period of time. Ian was at the point where he was earning regular income. I said, right. One day we were in the office, same thing. Oh man, this is what I really want. I said, Ian, come, let's go for it. I'm going for a drive. He said, where? I said, I've organised for you to have a look at some cars. All of a sudden from, I really want this, it was, what do you mean? I said, we're going to look at some cars. I've spoken to a guy up the road and he's got a couple of cars for you to look at. Get in the car. We got in my car and we drove. Now he was quiet. He didn't sit there and say, oh man, this is what I want. He just sat quietly. We arrived at the dealership, introduced him to the owner. There were 3 cars or 4 cars that the owner had put out for him, all in the same price range. And he eventually started getting into these cars and sitting in them and looking at them from the back and the front. And eventually settled into a silver blue 280 SE. And he sat in that car and he looked down on the bonnet and he said, man, this is what I want. I said, okay, fine, we're going to organize this now. And we did. We did the paperwork. I organized the deposit out of his commission account. We did it. He bought the car. He was going to get it a week later. A week later, I got one of my other salesmen to bring Ian and I, drop us off. Now he was driving back to the office. I was sitting in the passenger seat this time. And I'll never forget that look on Ian's face. It was, you could not believe that he was looking out like he had this unbelievable, this is me. When he stopped at a robot, he'd look at the car next to him and say nothing, but it was like, this is mine! absolutely fantastic. And you know what else he said to me on the way back to the office? He said, "Geez, Ray, I'm going to have to go and sell now." And that's exactly what he did. He was selling well. The moment he got his car, bang, shook, his sales went up. Why? He had something to show for it. He had something to enjoy. And now this is what, that question, why am I doing this? This is what I'm doing.